Well, we're back working on the bridge over the River Wye, and in all fairness, the bridge is done. We finished that up last Tuesday, but we've still got a lot of work to do here at the north end of the railroad, so I just thought I'd just keep going with the series. I mean, why not? Because we have this whole area to finish. So one of the most important features down here are the trees. A lot of the trees down here are actual living trees because it's a garden railroad, and you want that. North end of the railroad here is where the trains come out from inside Garage Mahal. All of the railroad is built on elevated benchwork, and that makes it a tiny bit more challenging to use real trees up here. But there's a mixture of trees. There's these dead trees made out of sagebrush, and then there's one or two of these artificial trees, but most of the trees up here are actual living trees. So in order to have living trees on top of the benchwork, it's necessary to have them planted in plant pots. And if you notice here, what I've got is a double pot. There's an outer pot which is cemented into the scenery, and then the inner pot slides neatly down inside of that. That way I can easily remove the tree. I unhook the water line that's going to it, and then I can lift the entire tree and its pot right out of the benchwork. That way I don't have to stand on a ladder in order to trim the trees or do any kind of maintenance on them. All of the scenery on the railroad is made out of mortar mix, concrete mortar mix, with color added to that and paint on top of that. And I just sort of carve the scenery out of that material. So what I'm doing to plant these trees is I'm taking one of these pots and just cementing it right into the scenery inside of the mortar mix. I just bring the mortar mix up and around the outer pot this way, and then that mostly holds it tightly in place. I bring the mortar mix right up to the edge of the pot. The downside here is it creates kind of a thin and crumbly area, and I've had a lot of it sort of break loose right in there, but I found a fix for that. So I just keep the tree in its original pot and then slide that pot down inside the other pot, and just like that, the tree is planted in the scenery. It looks best, of course, if I can keep the mortar mix scenery right up to the edge of the pot so that you can't see the pot. But as I mentioned, it gets kind of crumbly up here, and what I have found I need to do is add a fillet, if you will, between the pot and the cement mix of latex caulking compound, which is flexible, and that will just stay up there. It'll adhere itself to both the scenery and the outer pot. The trees are mounted in the scenery, generally speaking, 5 to 6 feet up in the air, which places the tree just slightly above eye line, which really makes for a good look. I took this picture from the train's eye view, looking up at it. This is what passengers on the train would see. I find that kind of fun and interesting, especially where I plan on having cameras on the train from time to time in order to get passengers or train crew eye view of the scenery. It's just a fun thing to do. The scenery and the trees actually look really fun when seen from this perspective. I'm just buying these little trees at the garden center. They're not terribly expensive, $15 or so. And they require a fair amount of water and upkeep and maintenance. They're going to want to overgrow the railroad, the scenery, so they're going to require a lot of trimming from time to time to keep them from running completely amok. I'm using mostly these little Alberta spruces. I also have some juniper in the center here, and I even have a miniature euonymus. The fun thing is, because of the way I've done this, I can move the trees all around if I feel like I want to change it up for some reason. One of the subscribers here on the channel, he goes by Clip and Grow Bonsai for Seniors. Anyway, he's been giving me some pretty sage advice on all of this. I appreciate his help. One of the principal functions of these trees is to hide stuff in the background that I don't really want seen. I want to see the neighbors' shrubbery and trees and stuff. I don't necessarily want to see their air conditioning unit. Because of the placement high up this way, usually what you see behind the trees is nothing but blue sky with a hint of the neighbor's trees. I think it looks really great. And while the neighbor's trees are a little bit out of scale, the whole thing still looks really great. It comes together really well. That is one of the aspects, after all, of garden railroading, is that you've got this collision between your models and the real world going on at all times. Hopefully not an actual collision because your train fell off the track. What I mean to say is a visual collision, a juxtaposition, as they would say. Another aspect of having the trees up on top of wooden benchwork this way is that they're not going to get any water from the sprinkling system, so every tree has to have an individual water line run to it. So I bought one of these little systems for splitting out your half-inch sprinkler line into small tubes for a drip system. I got that at Home Depot, and then ran individual water lines up to every tree so that every single tree has its own water line. There's a narrow easement behind the property here where an irrigation ditch comes down through here, and I run a lot of my service stuff, if you will, for the railroad on the back side of the wall, and I can access it from the ditch back here. I always kind of wonder what the water master thinks when he's cleaning out the ditch and walking through here, and he comes across the back side of the railroad. Just what in the world he thinks is going on here. It looks much better, of course, from the railroad side of the wall rather than the ditch side of the wall. When I turn the sprinklers on, it takes about 1 minute before water starts coming out of the drip system here at the trees, because when the sprinklers go off, the drip lines completely drain back to the other end because they're elevated this way. So it takes about 1 minute before water arrives up here at the trees. I can regulate the amount of water by turning the little knob on top of the drips here. Once I had the whole thing installed, I came up with another idea. I took a drill and I drilled through both plastic tubs, both plant pots at the back side, and then fished the water line through the back side of the two pots, and that locks the two pots in place with the water line, and it helps hide the water line so you can't see it when you're not up on a ladder, as I am right now. Now there's this area just to the west of the area where I've been working, where the bridge and the mine are, and this is an area for future expansion, and I'm having a lot of fun right now sort of envisioning what I might choose to do right here. There we have it, living trees on the north end of the railroad. Now if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please subscribe. It helps you find us and us find you. And if you're not a subscriber, the easy way to subscribe is by clicking on the upcoming blue button. Zoink! Right there, the blue button. Well, I'm not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and Karen and I will see you here on Sunday because we have something fun to show you. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.